Welcome back, Bears fans, to another episode of the Bears Brothers podcast, and welcome to our Bears Broncos preseason postgame show. The final whistle just blew, and our Bears won a game here in the preseason, finally, 24-23, in a game that I'm going to classify as sloppy. Ton of penalties. I think both teams had like 144 penalty yards. We'll talk about those as we get throughout this postgame show, but I want to introduce myself. I'm your host, Will DeWitt, and to help me break down this game, I am joined by both of my Bears brothers, and I am literally joined by both of them as Brandon and Nick right here with me. This is the first time that we've ever done a podcast with all three of us in a same location. We did it in Canton, but that was offline. This is live, so this is definitely new territory for us. We're all going to be sharing this one mic, so this is going to be a lot of fun. But fellas, we had a pretty good day. We started off Soldier Field this morning, took the train up to Chicago, did a fantasy draft. It was a lot of fun. B, overall, are you hanging in there? Because I am personally feeling quite tired.
Yeah, I'm hanging in there. We'll get through this, and then it's bedtime.
Nick needs his nap, right?
Oh, no doubt about it. It's been a long day, but like you guys said, it was a fun day. We did have a fantasy draft from Soldier Field, and yeah, it's just after this, we're probably gonna get to bed.
Yeah, and my fantasy team is definitely the best between the three of us. You can check Twitter, and you can let us know. I have some guys disagreeing with me, but of course, that's just how the cookie crumbles. But guys, let's go ahead and get down to breaking down this Bears game. And let's go ahead and jump right into our opening drive, which consists of our opening segments and, of course, our most valuable Bear. And we got to begin like we always do with my monster moment. And I'm going to give you two here. And I almost can do three now after the last series from that Bears defense. I'm going to give you one with the starters first because for the third series of the night, it was the one right after the Bears had that safety. The Bears marched down the field, 5 plays, 75 yards. They're able to score and take the lead, and it was a great play in the red zone. A lot of misdirection. Trubisky faked a handoff left to Howard. The entire defense bit. Then Trubisky found Trey Burton on the right side, wide open for a play, for a touchdown. And so for me, this first touchdown connection between Drew and Trey, a connection that is going to be very valuable this season, especially with a tight end injury that we're going to talk about in a little bit. It's going to be my monster moment for the starters because it proved at least I was proud, I should say, of how the first team was able to bounce back after giving up that safety. Things were looking a little scary on the offensive side of the ball from this first unit. I was worrying, here we go. We're going to see exactly what we did from the Bengals, but nevertheless, they were able to put it behind them real quickly, march down the field. I know they got aided by a big PI call. So it's okay. They were able to make it work. And real quickly for the backups, they're down 23-10 with 8 minutes left to go in this game. And the offense put together 2 strong drives, 19 plays, 134 yards, 14 points. And they were able to take the lead with 2 minutes left. Chase Daniel led the way. He was 12 of 16, 2 touchdowns on those drives. Based off my count, and again, it's getting late, so that might not be 100%, but I'm pretty sure I am right. So Chase Daniel leading the way. He looked really strong. We'll talk about him in a bit, but those two are my monster moments of the offense, of course, for the starters, getting their first touchdown, and then the backups coming down from 13 points down to come back and win this game. But let's go over to Brandon for his stat of the game.
Yeah, my stat of the game is going to be 64. That is 64% because that was Trubisky's completion percentage throughout this game. And since this was the first stint where we really get to see him perform longer, because in the last game he went 2 for 4, that's 50%, small sample size, but 9 of 14. Despite the sloppiness that Will alluded to earlier, some miscommunication here and there, overall, I think 64% on the game shows Trubisky's confidence level with this offense. And I think that's really going to, I don't want to say improve a whole lot, but I think it shows where he's at. I think he knows the offense pretty well. So that's going to be my stat of the game.
There we go. 64% for Trubisky. Not a bad number whatsoever. And no targets for Allen Robinson, and yet his completion percentage is still pretty darn good. Let's go over to Nick here. Are you going to give us a knock or a knack in this Bears victory?
I think it's only fitting with the Bears winning to give a knack for this game. And I'm actually going to give it to the play calling, which include a lot of misdirection and just good making people open. We saw that on the Trey Burton touchdown. Saw on Taquan Mizzell when he scored. There's a lot of rub routes that worked really well for Matt Nagy today. So we saw a little bit more of Nagy just kind of opening it up, getting his guys the opportunity to get the ball, and Trubisky just being able to deliver the ball, or even Chase Daniel. So it goes to the play calling, goes to the rub routes that happen. Just play calling in general was the knack for me. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. It was definitely a knack. I have a few notes about that we can talk about once we get into the next quarter of this post-game show. But guys, let's go ahead and hand out our MVP of tonight's game. I'm going to go right back to Nick for his.
You know what? This is a game where there was a lot of guys that played well, and then they it was back and forth. But I'm going to give it to Nick Kwiatkowski. Actually, I think in terms of the linebackers, he played the most consistent. He was able to fill his gaps, was able to make tackles, and he just looked fast out there. So, and obviously he's a guy with Roquan Smith coming in. He might not have a job come maybe week 1, but he played really well in this game, and I liked how he performed.
All right, over to Brandon for his MVP.
My MVP is going to be Trevathan LeBlanc with the nice classic peanut punch to force the fumble on the receiver there to end the game. That really sealed it for the defense. It was nice to see the defense be able to step up when the game was on the line and seal this one.
Absolutely. That was a textbook peanut punch there by Trevathan. In many ways, that's a really good choice for MVP because not only did he do that, but I thought he played really well all game long there for the Bears in that nickel position. And he was someone that we're talking about in the preview show. Like, this is a game for him to step up because he missed last week and he needed to show his worth still on this roster. And I think he did so today. So definitely a good outing from Mr. LeBlanc. For me, I'm going to take the easy one, and I'm doing Chase Daniel. He was 19 of 28. Already talked about 10 of 16 in the final 2 drives. About 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he was sacked twice. He didn't even have a great pressure, but he was, I think Nick on Twitter, not this Nick, but Nick, one of our fans, he was tweeting me, and he said that Daniel looks nifty. I think it's a perfect word to describe the play that we saw out of Daniel today. He was making the most of his opportunities, doing some of the little things. He was like a ballerina out there in the pocket sometimes. Sometimes he fell. The other times he was able to escape. But he finished with 110 pass rating today. And today, Daniel played like a quarterback that knows this offense. I think today was the first time we actually get to see some of the real Bears offense that we're going to actually be able to witness in a regular season. I think that's why you're seeing an elevation in Chase Daniel's play. And so for me, he's going to be my MVP. Of course, he led that comeback as well. All right, so that's going to do it for the first quarter of our post-game show. And before we enter the second quarter and break down what the Bears offense did tonight, I need to call a timeout and tell you about our show sponsor, SeatGeek. Football is back, and SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to every type of game all season long. Whether you're searching for a last-minute deal, planning a night out, or need to find a perfect gift, SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There's nothing quite like being there in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. As you know, SeatGeek is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever. Every purchase is fully guaranteed. You can, shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. And it doesn't just end with sports. SeatGeek has plenty of tickets and tickets to concerts, comedy, and theater shows as well. And personally, we all have the apps on our phone as one of the most simplest ways that we've been able to shop for tickets. Be anywhere, pull our phones within a few taps, instantly find some seats. You can sort them by value. You can sort them by section. You can sort them by price. I personally like the value one. It's a great way to find out what kind of seat value you're going to get per seat. So you can choose, do I want to get a really a cheap seat on top, or maybe pay a little bit more, but I'm getting a great value at a seat that's a little bit closer to the field. And again, I'm looking for that Bears first game at Soldier Field Monday night against the Seattle Seahawks. I really encourage you to go. It'll be Coach Nagy's first time coaching in Soldier Field when a game actually matters. The first one, of course, is coming next week in the preseason, but definitely check it out. There's still plenty of seats available for you to purchase. And the best part of all is that our listeners get $20 off that SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code BEARS today. That's promo code BEARS, BEARS, for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. All righty, you're listening to the Bears Brothers podcast. It is 11:34 p.m., 12:34 a.m., my normal time, and we are here breaking down the Bears' first preseason victory of 2018, and more importantly, a day in which we actually got to see some of the starters in game action for an extended period of time. Nick, we're going to talk about the offense now, and I'm going to hand it over to you first. I saw you're going for a drink, so I'm ready. I'm flowing. I'm throwing off your flow here, but general thoughts about the offense, the starting unit, before we kind of jump into position specifics.
Yeah, so just the starting unit, I thought, definitely made progress from last week. We saw, like I said, a little bit more of the playbook open up, and just like player specifics, we saw Kevin White get more involved, and you saw Jordan Howard actually involved, and he looked good in his first game action. So we saw a little bit of what Nagy is going to bring into that regular season. But again, he's not showing his full hand yet, but there's definitely positive strides that we saw in this game. So definitely, I think Kevin White was a guy. You saw Mitch Trubisky making throws. Anthony Miller made a big catch today, but we saw a little bit more out of the offense tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And where you really saw that creativity kind of, take shape is down in the red zone. Like once they got down there, that's when Nagy got really creative, especially with the misdirections. There are a few times when even the plays were fooling the people operating the cameras, and that's a good sign. And I like that a lot. You guys see a lot of jet sweep actions today. Of course, it's you're not only figuring out where the coverage is going to be when you do that, because you're going to find out if they're playing zone or a man, depending on how they shift. But also it makes you wonder, are they going to get the ball? That person on the jet, like if it's Miller or say a Cohen. But yeah, I really like the creativity that we saw tonight. I think even though we understood that preseason, we're not going to see a lot of things after the Hall of Fame game. And then last week's preseason game, we're all kind of itching to see what this offense can do, because last year is so bad. I think we're all just kind of fearing anything remotely close to the same thing. But B, over to you. Any general thoughts you want to mention?
Yeah, kind of echoing what you guys have said. Steps in the right direction, which is good, but also a mixed bag. We've seen the safety tonight, which isn't Whitehair's fault, in my opinion. Hit Trubisky in the hands. He's got to be able to catch it. I know you're in the end zone. There's a little bit more pressure there, but at the same time, we talked about this last week or in the preview show, one step at a time. Got to catch the ball, then make your looks or your looks. Sorry about that. And then after that, we had another one, the Trubisky interception where Tarik Cohen kind of quits running the route. I mean, those are things that need to be shored up. So it's like we're taking steps in the right direction, but we're still seeing some of that previous Bears offense from last year where they're just having an inability to capitalize on certain situations.
Of course, growing pains with learning a new offense is a given, something that we have definitely anticipated, and I think we saw a few of those tonight. But let's go ahead and jump into the quarterbacks. We talked about a little bit of what Trubisky was able to do, but for the most part, I want to mention that he looked really smooth. He was able to get off some really good throws on the run. In our preview, I said that Coach Nagy and myself were looking for how he can throw those anticipation throws or those card throws. And I thought he did a really good job with those, in particular to Trey Burton. Those two had a really strong connection today. If I'm not mistaken, Trey Burton, let's see, he finished on 4 catches of 5 targets. So he caught 80% of the balls that went his way today. I thought those two, you really saw that they're really starting to establish a connection. And I think today is a good stepping stone for the future between those two. But yeah, Trubisky, besides the safety, I thought he looked, for the most part, really well. I still think he's putting a little bit too much zip on some of these really short throws. Needs to do some touch. We saw that on the big play from Daniel to Benny Fowler. It was a nice touch ball, allowing Benny to grab it on the run and just continue to run upfield with it. So maybe Trubisky should see that on tape and kind of want to emulate that in the future. But let's go over to Nick here. Your thoughts on Trubisky before we move on to Chase Daniel.
Yeah, so Trubisky, what I really liked, and we're going to see this a lot during the regular season, is that he just gave his receivers opportunities to make plays. You even saw that on the pass interference call to Kevin White. It was a jump ball. Even though it was a little underthrown, he's still giving Kevin White an opportunity to go up and get it. It still benefited the Bears. And then you saw the Anthony Miller play. That's double coverage, but Trubisky trusts his guy, Anthony Miller, to just go up and make a play. So I really like that from Trubisky. And then just those timing throws, like you were saying, those out routes. He was very accurate on that. The one critique, obviously, the fumble or the safety. And then the interception, yes, Tarik Cohen quit on the route, but also that's a ball that probably shouldn't be thrown there in the first place. Even though it's maybe where he's anticipating where Tarik Cohen should be, it's still an iffy throw to make. But I think Trubisky had a great game overall.
Yeah, no doubt. And, that interception afterwards, you can tell that Trubisky was very upset. Coach Nagy had to stop him and, I don't know what, the camera kind of went off, but he stopped him, and Trubisky turned around and was yapping something. I am not a really good lip reader, but you can definitely tell he was visibly upset. And if it was to a Tarik Cohen, I like it personally, because holding your guys to a higher standard, telling him, you need to finish that route or you did it wrong, it's okay. And to do it, in a way that's a little bit more aggressive is fine as well. It's a way of taking ownership and saying, I know you can do better. Go ahead and do it. And if you do that now, again, it's only the second official preseason game, third one for the Bears. If you do that now, come to regular season, it's just going to bode well for the long-term success between these two. I think he expects more out of Cohen, and I think Cohen expects more out of himself as well. So for me, I really like to see that fiery passion out of Trubisky. Something we didn't really see a lot last year from a rookie, but now second-year player, he's kind of more comfortable doing that. And for me, that's a good sign to see. But let's go over to Brandon here. Your thoughts on Trubisky?
Yeah, without really, because you guys took all my points already. So I just want to say that I think the scheming, something that Nick touched on earlier, really, really helps Trubisky excel. Guys are able to get open because they're running routes that allow them to get open. And he trusts his guys like Anthony Miller. The the pocket moves, which is something that Trubisky's really good at, being able to throw on the run, even though it was to his left, he's going against the grain. He trusts Anthony Miller, and the route was able to, I mean, he was in double coverage, but at the same time, if he throws a little sooner, he might have Anthony Miller in a one-on-one situation. Doesn't have to climb the ladder, go get that ball. But it's things like that, the schemes that really allow Trubisky to be able to excel. And I think we're going to see him continue to grow once we get rid of some of these growing pains.
All right, so let's talk about my MVP a little bit here in, of course, Chase Daniel. And B, since we stole all your Trubisky points, I think it's just fair to give you the mic first.
I appreciate that. Chase Daniel, poise and confidence were the two words that came to mind when he led this offense in the fourth quarter with those two touchdown drives there to seal the game, to get us the last 14 points there. We've seen it from the Bears in the past under an offensive coordinator I don't want to name because we said we're not going to say his name anymore, where they just consistently hit check down because the defense is playing prevent. But in this situation, the defense is playing prevent. They're playing a bend but don't break. But then we get into the red zone and we're able to capitalize. That was the next step that we could not take last year. And it was really nice to see Chase Daniel be able to capitalize and bring the team back. And that way he did it confidently. He did it in a timely manner. Very good game management from Chase Daniel on his part. And overall, I mean, I think he was, 18 of 27 for 189 yards and the 2 touchdowns. I mean, I think he played very, very well today.
No doubt about it. That's why he was my MVP. Nick, I'm going to go over to your thoughts about Daniel and then another question. And we talked about it when we were watching the game a few minutes ago. No Tyler Bray today.
Yeah, that was interesting. But first on Chase Daniel, it just seemed like, again, a guy that knows this offense, was able to make the timing throws, knew where he was going with the ball, before the snap, just based off of the coverage. He just looked really comfortable out there tonight. And then, the Tyler Bray not playing, we were talking about that. What's the significance of that? Who knows? I mean, if the Bears feel like they don't need to bring Tyler Bray on this team and he was just there for the offseason to help Trubisky, well, that's almost coming to an end now, going into the 4th preseason game next week. So maybe Tyler Bray not playing this game is just a sign that he may not be on this team for much longer.
Yeah, it's interesting because you don't expect him out there next week in the dress rehearsal because it's going to be the starters throughout the, into the second half. And then you anticipate Daniel being out there again to finish off that game. And then if Bray's primarily going to be playing in the final preseason game, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'm not going to say he is or he isn't going to make this roster. I'm not in the quarterback room. I'm not a part of the Bears staff. So I don't know what they're thinking. But for me personally, him not playing tonight, where the Broncos played all 3 of their quarterbacks tonight, might show that they're planning to move on perhaps without Tyler Bray for this season. B, anything to add, or you want to go to running backs?
No, let's go to running backs.
Someone's tired. All right. All right. So let's go.
What am I supposed to do?
You're right. All right. So moving on to the running backs today, Jordan Howard, he put together in his limited role today. He had 9 carries, 32 yards, averaging a little under 4 yards per carry. He had that long of 17. But again, I don't want to steal everyone's thunder, so I'm going to hand it over to Nick first. And I want to know what you saw from Jordan Howard.
Yeah, so Jordan Howard's been known to be a patient runner, just being able to find holes when there really isn't any. And, we saw that today. First game action against the Denver Broncos where there was really nowhere to go, but he still was able to bounce it outside, show that elusiveness, which you don't really say Jordan Howard and elusiveness like to go together, but we saw that today. So it was a good showing by Jordan Howard, who's going to be the bell cow this season. But yeah, I thought he had a really good game just for his first game action this season.
Yeah, and like you talked about his patience, his vision, I really like the patience today. Some of those plays were very slow developing, and it was kind of like, why is this taking so long? But then when Jordan Howard's able to gain 10 yards out of it because he's allowing all those blocks to set up, and then once they engage, he can kind of like wiggle his way through it. It works. I mean, it's not flashy. He's not going to make like a highlight with it, but he's just going to do the dirty work, wait for his hole, take the opportunity, and get the yards that it's kind of like in a passing game where you take what the defense gives you. I think Howard does that too in a little bit when he's running the football, and that's everything we come to expect from Howard today. And of course, rarely would the first guy take him down. He's always fighting for those extra yards, and he's very tough to take down one guy. Let's go over to B. Anything else on Joe?
That was the nickname I thought we were going with, but yeah, I mean, classic Jordan Howard today. Got better as the game went on. And the one run that stood out to, I think, all 3 of us, the one that gave him the Jordan, what was it? Oak tree Howard. Yeah, oak tree legs, whatever. Yeah, big legs, because when they were trying to bring him down, once he got past the sticks, he's still standing up. So just, again, classic Jordan Howard. He gets better as the game goes along. And that's something that, I think that's why they haven't obviously played him in the 2 preseason games prior to this, because they want to save those oak tree legs as long as they can.
All right, let's go over to Tarik Cohen. Overall, I thought it was a poor day for him. I honestly do. It was he had the one screen pass that he hauled in. He was able to get 10 yards. He should have got a lot more, but he took that ball inside when he should have bounced it out. Again, we have a different vantage point from getting the broadcast, so I don't know exactly what he was seeing, but he definitely had some more space out there. But before that, he was consistently confused pre-snap and where he was supposed to be lined up. He gave up on the route for the interception that we already kind of talked about. And yeah, so overall, just a few things that, you expect some fun things out of Tarik Cohen, but today was like the not so fun things from Tarik. And my question for you, Nick, is the Bears as a team had 23 carries, not one for Tarik Cohen, but he was targeted, let's look here, on 3 times today. So we've talked about it. Is he being phased out as a true running back or not? He hasn't taken a single carry yet this preseason. Not again today. Any thoughts on that?
Again, Nagy could be just hiding him, which was definitely an option. But yeah, Tarik Cohen, even with the Taylor Gabriel out, he's not getting the targets as much as you would think you'd be getting. And again, he didn't have any carries, and he's not getting that many targets. And when he was, look, not finishing the route, and I tweeted it out, it's unacceptable for him to not get a first down on that screen pass. It was complete open space to his right. There were 2 blockers in front of him. The defender made a nice play, spinning out and, making an effort. But still, Tarik Cohen's a guy. If you get him in space, he should be able to take a small play and make it a big gain. But Tarik Cohen, just was not his game today. But it's interesting that, we're not seeing as much of him in the preseason. Nagy could be showing that, but I still expect him to do more, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, we'll figure it out as he's going to be heavily used in his offense. No reason to worry. I think we all just want to see it because it's just so much fun to watch Tarik Cohen play football. He always finds a way, at least once per game when he's involved, to get you up off your off your butt and on your feet. And I think we're all just kind of eager to see that yet again, like he did a season ago. B, anything you want to add on Cohen?
Yeah, despite his mental absence, I guess is the word that I'll use to describe him, he's still being used in all these pre-snap motions, used as a pawn, basically. Because I've got on my notes here a couple times where he's motioning twice across the line, and defenses have to respect that because he is this playmaker that we all want to see get us up off the couch and onto our feet. So he's still going to be used in that way, and even if he's not there mentally, defenses still have to respect him, despite he may not have taken the right read on that screenplay or quit on the route, which is kind of unfortunate still. But I think that, despite the mental absence, he's still going to be used in scheming ways that are going to be exciting.
All right. So one more thing for running backs. We didn't get to see a lot of Ryan All today, but we did, especially towards the end of the game, see a lot of Taquan Mazzell. And Nick, I know that you were, even though he was, he was producing, especially as a receiver, which is what we said coming into the year, like that's what he needs to provide in order to make this team. You want to let our listeners know maybe something about either they should buy this production or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when I was there in Denver at the practice, he wasn't catching anything. And then, of course, come game time, Taquan Mazzell is catching everything and getting a lot of opportunities. But it's going to still be interesting whether or not the Bears are going to want to keep Taquan Mazzell. I think he's got to show a little bit more than just one good game. He's got to put, a stretch of good games for these final 2. So it'll be interesting. But like I said, on that Wednesday practice, nothing was happening. And now he's going out there catching touchdowns. But again, the scheme helps a lot because Mazzell was wide open on touchdowns, and there was just nobody guarding him on some plays. So we'll see what happens with Mazzell.
All right. Any final thoughts on running backs? B's doing a clutching motion with his hand. And since we've never done a podcast in person like this, I'm assuming that means hand me the mic.
Yes, please. Four carries today for 10 yards, and something that Nick kept kind of saying throughout the whole entire show, like, don't be tricked by Taquan Mazzell. Don't be tricked by Taquan Mazzell. And he's going to have to put up more production than that in the running game. I mean, he had 7 catches on his 8 targets, which was good, but they all kind of came in late times when he was a little more open because defense is playing a little more prevent. But as far as being a running back, if Tarik Cohen's not going to be used as much of a runner, then Taquan Mazzell is going to have to be able to put up some sort of production to be able to take some sort of load off of Jordan Howard, and he's just not doing that right now.
Exactly. All right, let's move over to wide receiver. Today's big news heading in was the debut for Allen Robinson, but I guess we can use the word debut in quotes because it really wasn't much of one today. No targets, nothing to specify here on Allen Robinson other than he took some snaps as a Chicago Bear, and that's about it. But honestly, I mean, it's good. They talk about in the broadcast, getting him through the pregame warm up and getting him out, going through the routine. That's all fine. I mean, I think we're all hoping to at least see a catch today, but that didn't happen. But I think we had an official debut for a rookie wide receiver in Anthony Miller. Let's go over to Nick. What did you like about what we saw from Miller today? Because there's just so much.
Yeah, I liked everything that I saw from Anthony Miller today, making the acrobatic catch over 2 defenders and just stiff arming a guy in a drag route to get those extra yards. He had a little high step and right before he went out of bounds. I like that. But yeah, Anthony Miller, I think, we're starting to see, and we've seen it in training camp the entire time. He's special. And if you give him the ball in space or just, in coverage, he's going to come down with it. That's just the kind of receiver he is, despite being a rookie. I think he's just ready to, burst onto the scene. It's just, getting him on the field, giving him opportunities. But Anthony Miller's the real deal.
I like that quote. That should be on like a t-shirt. The real deal. The real deal. That's what I like it a lot. One play in particular that stands out besides that awesome catch along the sidelines that I know everyone's excited about. And it was the one that Nick talked about in terms of the high stepping at the end. Miller was a shallow cross from right to left. Daniel, the ball placement wasn't totally there. It was a little bit behind Miller, but he was able to adjust in the middle of his stride so seamlessly. Looked so easy. But that's not an easy one to catch and keep running in perfect in a straight line there. But he was able to make that catch, turn upfield, get that first down, and again makes it so easy. He's just very natural at the position, and that's what makes him fun to watch because he makes the difficult ones or maybe the not so easy plays just look so simple. And when you're doing that, that he's just a natural fit at the position. And to do this here in only a second preseason game. Just imagine with a little bit of development, a little bit of time, a little bit of grooming, what he can do. B, anything else on Miller you like to add maybe that we didn't, or do you want to switch on over to Kevin White?
I'll kind of make a transition here with my Anthony Miller point. All these great catches and all these things that he was able to do, the great stiff arm that Nick brought up, all very good things, but also he was good in the blocking game, which I said was something with the tight ends we needed to see. But Anthony Miller and Kevin White both were very good downfield blocking at different points in the game. And I'll transition it now to Kevin White, where I thought it was really interesting that we've seen him line up as a fullback at one point in this game. Was not expecting that. I think that play ended up getting flagged and ended up coming back, so it didn't make much of a difference. But it's interesting just to see, again, with the scheme, where exactly these guys are going to line up. I would have never guessed that we would see Kevin White get motioned in as a fullback. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. And you know what? He didn't get hurt. He had 2 receptions, had 4 targets. I know we said, we're all making that same joke, but I mean, it's true in a way. And he needed that confidence boost today. So I'm glad to see him get the receptions out there today.
Yeah, it's funny. Every time that Kevin White makes a play, everyone on Twitter oh, he didn't get hurt. And then Nick's dad comes home from work and he's like, oh, Kevin White's out there. He didn't get hurt. It's like everyone has the same joke. But for me, Kevin White, you look at his stat line, 2 catches, 15 yards off of 4 targets. It's not going to, if you're just looking at the stats recapping the game, it's not going to really jump out at you. But I think we saw some of the little things from Kevin. Brandon already talked about the run blocking, which, downfield, he was able to spring Jordan Howard for some longer games due to that. But he had a couple other catches that didn't count due to penalties. Again, so many penalties today. But something I liked is that and something that's always happened with his career, and which is why he takes additional hits, is that he never goes down easy. He's always fighting for the extra yard. I maybe once or twice in a game, if he's getting multiple targets or catches, is he going to go down with the first guy? And if he does, he's going to make that first guy earn it. He's not going to just go down. He's going to try to stay up as long as possible. So for me, small progress from Kevin White today. Of course, you want to see him make a big splash play, but we can't, beggars can't be choosers. So something out of Kevin White is better than nothing out of Kevin White. Nick, anything you want to add about Kevin White before we move on?
No, I mean, I think you hit on a great point. I also noted that as well, is that whenever he does make a catch, he's always fighting for those extra yards. And maybe being a former first-round pick, he's still trying to prove himself. Okay, I can't just catch the ball. Let me go do something afterwards, just kind of prove my worth on this team. But I think we talked enough about Kevin White. A guy that we were surprised to barely see any of is Javon Wims. I think he appeared just a little bit with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, something like that. Not a lot of time left in this game. And Javon Wims, Tanner Gentry, both going to be guys fighting possibly for that last wide receiver spot. Benny Fowler as well. So it was interesting to, not see as much Javon Wims as I guess we would have liked. Benny Fowler did make a couple plays tonight as well. But yeah, Javon Wims, I thought he would be more involved in this game.
Yeah, no, it's very peculiar to say the least. There was Wims didn't come into the game until 8 minutes and 34 seconds were left in the entire game. And then you had Marlon Brown out there with the 1, so you're kind of like, what? It makes no sense. But I mean, the Bears coaches, I mean, they had a plan. I don't know exactly what the plan was. Maybe it was just to give Brown a look. But Javon Wims seems like someone who's been working his way up the depth chart, so it makes no sense why it took him to the last 8 minutes to get in this game. But despite that fact, he had 2 catches, 18 yards on 3 targets. So, I mean, he was able to at least do something when he was out there, especially in those couple of drives that were the monster moments to start off the show. But yeah, we'll see exactly what that means for Wims. I'm not really reading too much into it, but it was pretty interesting to say the least. I know I tweeted Adam Johns and Patrick Finley, like, is he even dressed? What's going on? And then John waits 24 minutes to tweet me back that he's out there now. Like, appreciate the insight there, Adam, so much. All right. Any final thoughts on receivers before we move on to tight ends? Anyone else that you want to mention? B's raising his hand. All these different signals that apparently all mean the same thing. So here's the mic.
It was incredibly nice to see Benny Fowler make a game-changing catch after dropping the one in Baltimore in the end zone that would have given the Bears a lead at the time, would have changed the whole course of the game. And then again the following week. This week he had a catch for 36 yards, which was incredibly nice because it kept the drive alive. I was able to pick up some momentum for the offense. It was nice to see him be able to come through and get some yak on that one.
No doubt. Nick, anything else you want to add, or you want to go over to tight ends?
Let's go over to the tight ends.
Someone else is tired. All right, guys. So moving on to the Chicago Bears tight ends today, I want to poll the room. Good news or bad news? Which one do we start with?
Let's just get the bad news. Let's do it.
Okay, so if you haven't heard by now, and if you haven't, then I'm surprised by this. Adam Shaheen in the first quarter had a catch, and when he went down, his ankle bent rather awkwardly. We don't know if it's a sprain or a break. We'll figure it out as
an update from Rich Campbell. Matt Nagy says he doesn't think that Adam Shaheen's ankle was a fracture, so that's a good thing, but that's about it.
It could be so many things, though.
Yeah.
That's all we know.
That limits one thing.
Limits the fracture.
So unlikely, it's a bone break. A lot of tendons, muscles, and ligaments to deal with now. So Adam Shaheen, it's an ankle injury. We'll see exactly how it will, impact his season. But say he's gone for an extended period of time, guys. I know the Bears' tight end depth is something that we've applauded all offseason, all training camp, throughout the preseason as well, which this is a good time for it to kind of come in handy. I know some people are like wondering if they'll make a trade, if there's a long-term injury here. I doubt that happens. But let's go to Nick here first. Do you think the Bears have the depth in order to combat this, which I think we all agree they do, and how would it affect this offense moving forward?
Yeah, so I mean, with Shaheen possibly missing some time, obviously that's going to move a Daniel Brown, Ben Broniker up the depth chart. Daniel Brown's a guy that I think is capable of being able to, I guess, fulfill a position in this offense, basically be that backup to Trey Burton, not the blocking tight end that you want to see, that Adam Shaheen, being the Y, but it just moves everybody up. But this is a good tight end group. Kevin Gilbride, the tight ends coach, has done a great job, this training camp, this preseason, of getting these tight ends open, running precise routes. And we've seen everybody from even a Colin Thompson, who started off the preseason pretty good, has fallen off a little bit, to, Trey Burton being able to get open, catch the ball, make plays. So it's been, encouraging to see that. So is it the worst thing? Yeah, you want to see Adam Shaheen being a second-round pick, produce in his second season. But I think the Bears are capable to, replicate that production through their other tight ends that they do have on the roster.
For me, I think where it's really going to hurt is down the red zone, because you lose a really big, tall body down there in that constricted field where you can just throw it up and let them go up and get it. So for me, I think that's really where the Bears are going to hurt. And by hurt, I mean they should be able to mitigate the damage, but it's still going to not be to the same degree that they would be able to succeed if Shaheen was out there. But for me, a guy who's been on the roster bubble, Ben Broniker, if Shaheen is not ready to go for week 1, which I don't think he's going to be, I think he's the next guy up in terms of fulfilling that role, because you already said it. You have Daniel Brown, which will be behind Burton, and then you have Deion Sims, and then the next kind of blocking tight end besides Colin Thompson would be like a Ben Broniker. He's someone, today he had the touchdown. He's athletic enough to make some plays, of course, in the passing game, but in terms of an inline guy, I think that might be Broniker. So that might have him remaining on the squad if he otherwise wasn't going to be. But I think that's enough for the bad news. Unless B, you have anything to add here?
Not that I can think of as far as bad news.
All right, so let's talk with the good news now, and that's Trey Burton. He finished the day here with 4 catches, 45 yards, averaging over 11 yards per catch on his 5 targets. More times than not, he's moving the sticks when he puts, when the football's in his hand. B, I'm going to go over to you here first with the good news. Like I talked about, the true to Trey connection was in full effect tonight. I liked it a lot. What did you see out of Trey Burton that should have Bears fans excited moving forward?
His athleticism. The first catch that he made was a jumping, leaping, full body kind of extension type of catch on a post route, which is really nice to see. We know that he's that kind of player. It's just nice to see it in person.
Nice hands too.
Yes, very nice hands. Had some soft hands there on the 1 touchdown catch that he had as well. All around, just a very, very good, solid player. And I don't think that we're necessarily going to miss Adam Shaheen as much as a red zone presence, because Trey Burton can fill that role just as easily.
Different type of presence, though.
Yes.
Burton's going to be the underneath guy who can go up, and get it in, maybe on a corner route too. But Sheen's that, that fade, throw it up there, get it type of tight end. Nick, over to you here for your Trey Burton analysis.
Trey Burton's a guy that's going to be used early and often in this offense, and Trubisky's going to have to go to. I saw it all day, just when I was in Denver. The tight ends completely dominated the Denver linebackers. It showed today in this game. But yeah, I think Burton's a guy who, when he can just beat a linebacker in coverage, he's too big for a safety, has the just precise route running, and it showed today. And that's encouraging to see, because again, he's going to be a guy that's going to be used a lot, and Trubisky's going to go to a lot.
No doubt. Anything else on tight ends you guys want to mention? I think, Daniel Brown, Ben Broniker, kind of limited today, and for the most part in terms of their effectiveness. I already talked about Broniker's touchdown. Daniel Brown, he had 1 catch for 11 yards as well. Nothing overly wowing or glaring good or bad from anyone else. So for the sake of time, I'm going to move over to offensive line here, and I want to know your guys' take. And of course, I have to start with Mr. Trenches. So let's start with, of course, the starters and how that unit fared, and just some of your takeaways.
Yeah, the starters overall, for the most part, played pretty well. Charles Leno had a bad penalty at one point early in the game. Eric Kush ended up getting swapped out pretty early because he was struggling, wasn't really winning the point of attack. But no bad snaps by Cody Whitehair tonight. The one safety, I think, was on Trubisky. The other side, I thought, played very well. Kyle Long, Bobby Massey. I think Bobby Massey may have had 1 bad penalty at one point as well. But other than that, I mean, they get the 1 penalty and it's kind of out of their system. Hopefully we get to a point where they don't have to have any penalties to get anything out of their system, because it seemed like last year that was something with Charles Leno. Once he got his penalty, then he was clean for the rest of the game. So hopefully they can get that cleaned up, because Matt Nagy doesn't want to see them making the same mistake twice. But speaking of mistakes, Bradley Sowell, oh dear, out of a timeout, false start. Like, that should not happen at all. Especially from a guy who just signed this 2-year contract, is a professional, but he's a veteran in the league. That should never happen coming out of a timeout. And then on a 3rd and 8, where Chase Daniel was sacked, I think it was the second one for the night, Sowell just quit moving his feet, and the defender ran right around him. And it was just a terrible, terrible series by Bradley Sowell. That cannot happen. And you know what? For that reason, I mean, we talked about it. Rashad Coward was a guy after the whistle. He's always kind of poking and jabbing at guys, trying to get under their skin a little bit, because he knows what it takes. He was on the other side of the line, so he knows what those guys like and don't like. So I think that I would almost give the upper hand to Rashad Coward if there's a battle here for swing tackle.
It's interesting. Again, I feel like every week we get a little bit more and more confident in what Coward brings to the table, which it's exciting, because especially when you couple it with the fact that you mentioned Sal struggled today. It was even more than those couple of plays. Like, he was consistently letting up pressure, not doing much in terms of even in the running game as well. But he's someone he's visibly struggling. And when you have Coward on the other side, looking strong, looking fierce, always having, I think every time we saw pressure at Daniel, we said, okay, Daniels has his guy. And then Rashad Coward has his guy, and then usually it's the other side of the field that was kind of lacking in that department. But yeah, so it's interesting. We'll see exactly how it all unfolds. For me, Eric Kush's struggles is interesting, because he struggled early, not just in pass protection, but also getting any sort of run push. There was one play they called a dive right up behind Kush, and Howard had nowhere to go. So the next time they ran that hole, they pulled Kush out to the opposite side of the offensive line, just have some sort of breathing room from Howard. But what I found interesting is that Earl Watford was the first player and to take over for him. And Watford, he's a solid lineman. He's been playing very well in place of Kyle Long and Long's off days with the starting unit. And Watford's someone who can also play both guard positions. But you just really want to see James Daniels out there. Playing with the ones. I really thought it was a great opportunity, even if it was just for a series, to get him out there, see how he stacks up. Because I know that he's back at center, but maybe you just bite the bullet, move Whitehair over, and just put Daniels up there with the ones. See what he has. I really thought it was a good opportunity to do it with Kush struggling. I know Watford, someone that Coach Nagy said is in contention to win, or at least to be a part of this left guard battle. So I think it's like his look at it. But still, I think myself and most Bears fans, I know Mr. Iowa alum Nick too, was really hoping to see James Daniels out there. But other than that, we talked about Sal and Coward and all of that. No Hronis Gursu today. So that was, we were watching him just watch the clock kind of wind down with like 6 minutes left. Like, he might just be watching his Bears career just, tick tock second by second. He looked a little, what you called it, bored?
Yeah, bored.
Yeah. So we'll see exactly how that kind of plays out. But let's go over to Nick here. Anything on the offensive line that you want to mention?
I thought that the starting tackles could have played a lot better. There was the one play where I think it was Massey who just comes off late, and I forget what edge rusher it is. It might have been Von Miller. So that's, it's one of the best in the game. But they obviously you want to keep Trubisky upright and safe and healthy going into the regular season. So I just thought they could have played better. Obviously they're going against a tough task in Von Miller, and you have Bradley Chubb on the other end. So tough task. But that's going to happen during the course of the season. You're going to face teams with great pass rushers, and you got to be able to game plan to try to maybe get a little chip block on them or anything like that. But for the most part, if they're being left on an island, you want to see a little bit more effort. But again, these are some of the best pass rushers in the league.
Indeed, no doubt about it. All right, guys, any final thoughts on the Bears offense as a whole, from the starters down to, I'd call them second string? I don't think we saw much third string out there today in terms of maybe offensive line. Of course, no Tyler Bray. So I'm going to call them the second unit. But anything in the offense in general today that you want to mention? Let's keep it brief. It's getting late.
Yeah, just a mixed bag in general. That was kind of my opening statement. And sloppy, but there is some progression there.
I'm just excited personally that the Bears scored points, like I said earlier. Something that last week they got no first downs, and this week they had one with the penalty, but they didn't gain any in terms of plays. And they were able to put points up on the board. It took 3 series, but they were able to get the job done and put some points up on the board. And that's progress, and that's what we want to see in the preseason. And Nick, your final thought on offense?
Just piggyback off of that. Progress is being made. We've seen it in each preseason game, little by little. Like you said, the offense actually scored this game. The first team offense, they moved the ball, didn't have to have a penalty, continue their drive. So that's good to see, and progress is being made.
Excellent. So up next, we're going to enter the third quarter of our show and break down the Bears defense. But first, I want to remind you that we are releasing our 2018 season preview magazine on Monday. It's 120 plus pages of everything you need to know heading into week 1, including player and coach profiles, stat projections, schedule analysis, and of course, a final record prediction from everyone on our entire staff. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to unveil that to all of you. It's getting late here after the game, and it's going to be like a power nap. And then Nick and I are going to wake up and put the finishing touches on this magazine. But again, our entire team for the last 3 months have been hard at work getting this ready for your eyes, and I can't wait to show you our first ever season preview magazine. So keep a lookout for that. If you want to be notified via email as soon as it's available, I put the link here on YouTube. It is thebearsbros.com/magazine. So definitely check that out. All right, guys, let's officially enter our third quarter now with some defensive analysis. And of course, we have to start it off with some, just general takeaways from the unit as a whole. Of course, for me, the big one, Roquan debut. We knew, in the preseason or the preview show, we talked about, hey, hopefully he'll play, and he should play. I still think he should have played. I think he's young. He's a football player. He's smart. They talked about it over and over again. I understand maybe his body wasn't 100% calloused, quote unquote, but I think he's someone who could have went out there and played a little bit tonight, and it would have been no harm, no foul, and it would have helped get his feet wet heading into next week's dress rehearsal. But that's my one disappointment, I would say, overall. I have a few more. We'll talk about those. But the big one, let's go over to Brandon next.
Defensive line, this is something we'll touch on. I think is the squad that outshined everybody today on the defense. Of the 4 sacks that the team had, the defensive line had 3 of them. So very, very good showing by the defensive line.
Hey, they had 4 sacks. I said that would be great. And the preview, it's like, if they can get 4 sacks, that would be great. So that's good. Or that's actually great. Nick, over to you.
Yeah, just some, I guess, general thoughts here. I thought that some of the younger players that definitely had an opportunity to make plays and, maybe solidify a roster spot or, get their chances a little bit better didn't do that tonight. And we'll get down to that with each position breakdown. But just a general overview, no one really, I guess, stood out to me. There were a couple good plays from individual players, but no one was like a great standout except for Nick Kwiatkowski, like I said. But that was the one guy.
Right. Yeah. I think mixed bag is the term that we can use here again. You just wished you would have like that standout guy, like almost, I know he's still on the roster, but a few years ago, like that John Timu kind of game, like where like the whole game, like, wow, this undrafted kid can go out here and he can stick on this team, but no one's making that sort of case so far, like Timu did a couple seasons ago. But let's go over here. Defensive line. B, I already said they were stars of the show. Who in particular and why?
Roy Robertson Harris led the team with sacks. He had 1.5. John Jenkins had 1. Bilal Nichols had 1, and that covers. John Jenkins had a half. I don't know if I said 1 or a half. But John Jenkins had half. Roy Robertson Harris had 1.5. Bilal Nichols had 1. That gets you to 3. John Bullard also played a very good game. Was consistently winning the point of attack, but he was just always a step or a step and a half late as far as getting to the quarterback or getting to the running back. John Jenkins was a guy that he played more than I figured he would with the ones. And there were a couple times where he was able to get his hand on the ball carrier, especially on that touchdown, the last one that Denver scored. He was able to get his hand on the running back as he was making his way into the hole, but again, just a step late. So if there's something that I guess that they need to work on, it's just figuring out how to pick up a step and be able to get to the quarterback, John Bullard, notably, because he was just always consistently behind, which was just so frustrating because we want to be able to see him win. Well, I'd like to see Robertson Harris. I think he kind of pulled away a little bit tonight with the sack numbers, and he's consistently had a sack in every preseason game. But John Bullard, he's definitely making it tough for Robertson Harris to pull away.
Yeah, that's still a fun battle to watch. Again, I think you mentioned it that Robertson Harris had a slightly better game today. There are times like you mentioned, Bullard was close. He comes in off a stunt and he's right there, but he's just one step away from making the play, and the quarterback had enough time to escape and do something with it. For me, someone who stood out today, someone that you, Nick, was asking to see something from, and that's Bilal Nichols. He had 3 tackles, including 1 for a loss. He also had 2 quarterback hits today, and he was consistently getting into the backfield, making life difficult for the quarterback, and just looking like he belonged out there today, which is nice. He was out there a little bit with the ones, which was interesting to see how he kind of manned up against them. So for me, Bilal Nichols is someone who stood out to me today in a good way. And heading into next week's dress rehearsal, if he can just take one more step forward, just one more step, I think it's going to just give me the confidence that like Bilal Nichols can be a really decent rotational piece to start off the season, and let's see where he takes it. Nick, defensive line.
Yeah, no, I'm going to piggyback off of Bilal Nichols because that's a guy that I've been wanting to see more of in the preseason. And I think all that time now with him spending with Akeem Hicks, and you saw that even in this game when he makes a play, he's going over to Akeem Hicks. That's the one guy you definitely want to talk to just to get pointers on anything, because Akeem Hicks, as we know, is a great football player. So Bilal Nichols, I saw a lot more today. Like you said, getting in the backfield, able to win with leverage, use his hands, just get in the backfield. That's exactly what we want to see from a young player who is going to get playing time at some point during the season. So it's great to see from Nichols today, and hopefully that continues for the rest of the 2 preseason games.
B, Mr. Trenches apparently has more for the defensive line, and I like it.
Yeah, since no one else brought up Nick Williams or Abdullah Anderson, 2 guys who didn't get quite as much playing time as everyone else, but still were able to make their impact made. Nick Williams was able to get in there and stuff the run a couple times. Abdullah Anderson, I mean, he could have taken the ball out of Pax Lynch's hand when he batted that pass out there. I mean, he just literally right there, just take it out of his hand. But those 2 guys also making a very good case for themselves to be able to make the team or a team somewhere else if unfortunately there's not enough room, because I mean they're really starting to show up here.
Yeah, good call. Way to call out the maybe lesser known, lesser talked about players, giving them a little bit of the spotlight here because they deserve it. Like you said, not a big sample size, but when they're out there, they're making effective plays. And again, I know they're going up against third stringers, but that's where they are right now, or second stringers. And for them to at least play up to the level of competition that they're asked to do, it's still a good sign to see, no doubt about it. All right, guys. Let's go over to linebacker here, and let's start inside. And before we go over to Nick Kwiatkowski, Danny Trevathan was out there today. You didn't see a lot out of him today. He just had the 1 tackle. But when he was out there, it does seem like the Bears defense has that different attitude that aggressive mentality, and he usually has that team, on the right page, where they need to be lined up, and that's great to see, of course, from Trevathan. And when he was out there, the Bears defense only gave up, I think, 3 points. So for me, that's a win in my book. But let's go over to B here for linebacker because Nick is on his cellular device.
Yeah, throughout the game, just kind of taking notes and observing the game, I'm always noting that Danny Trevathan just seems to be around the ball. And that's the kind of energy that you just talked about that he brings, and that's what brings the defense up to that next step. Another guy, John Timu, he ended up leading the team in tackles today with 7. There were a couple times where, again, something that we've said that he just doesn't possess is the athleticism. And that's kind of what hurts him, but at the same time, he's going to be able to make the team because he had the green sticker that Jim Miller and Adam Amin called out on the broadcast as a guy that's going to be guys that's calling the defensive plays. So I think he's going to be safe as far as making the roster goes because if not, he's going to be a special teamer. But other than that, he's another guy that's just consistently around the ball.
Well, Nick, it was on his phone for a good reason. So, Nick, we have some breaking, other upsetting, bad news kind of moment here.
Yeah, so just was scrolling through Twitter because I've been seeing that even in the chat that Danny Trevathan supposedly went into the locker room to get an X-ray, and that also came from another source on Twitter, Jeff Legwold, professional reporter for the Broncos. That after the game, that Danny Trevathan did go into the X-ray room. Don't know what actually it is, but if Danny Trevathan is gone, that is a huge, huge blow for the Bears defense. That's the guy, because I don't know if Roquan's ready to call the plays. Obviously, you want Danny Trevathan to be that guy, that athleticism that he brings in coverage, just able to diagnose plays. The Bears defense is significantly better with him on the field. And if this is anything significant, which we hope it isn't, like I said, a big blow for the Bears defense. Hopefully, the x-rays come back negative and, maybe it's just a sprain, but we're all just speculating at this moment. But that's what I was looking up. Will and I just kind of looked at each other, just shook our head. We're like, no, this is the guy that obviously has had injury issues in the past. But if this is a huge blow, this Bears defense is a different team without him.
Yeah, because it forces people into different roles. Like Roquan, he's an off-ball linebacker, and Trevathan's that Mike. So you want to keep Roquan where he's going to be able to be in a little bit more space, which you would anticipate it then being a Nick Witkowski having to play that Mike. So it'd be interesting to see, to say the least. But that's some breaking, upsetting news here late that I did not want to have to process. But here I am processing it, and it's not good. And we talked about it in the preview show, and I asked you guys, should he play or not? And we all said he did. And I said, well, the injury history, guys, the injury history. And here we are. So I guess maybe I jinxed it. And if that's so, I feel really bad. But we have more injuries at linebacker, too. Leonard Floyd, he had a hand injury. He went to the locker room. He came back with his one of his fingers taped up. That's something that he can play with in a regular season. You just tape it up or you put a little, whatever cast or thing,
whatever it is,
medical device on it that would protect it a little bit more and allow him to play. So it's not like life or death, but someone, of course, like a outside linebacker who needs to utilize his hands to set up pass rush moves. That's of course perhaps going to limit that in some regard or another. Any thoughts on Leonard Floyd's injury that I didn't specify? I don't.
He's played with a cast before, hasn't he?
I think so. He's played with injuries, so yeah.
You don't want to see Leonard Floyd injured, though. He has not put together a full season, and he's supposed to be a big part of this defense. You want to see him get double-digit sacks. I think that's what he needs to get for this Bears defense, take that next step. So, again, if we lose now a Danny Trevathan, Leonard Floyd I'm not too worried about right now, but that's not an injury you want to see. If even if you do play with a cast, you want to still be able to utilize your hands in a regular way without anything medical device on there. But yeah, so it's disheartening because the Bears did have some significant injuries happen in this game, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see the severity of them.
Right. So bad news Bears tonight, apparently, with all these injuries. Let's go back to more positive things, and let's go back to Nick Witkowski real quick, because I think we deserve to talk about him just at least one more time. I have here, he's playing with fire and passion, and I really think that Roquan Smith finally getting under contract and being in practice and all the eyes on him it's kind of lit a little bit of a more, fire under his butt to go out there and make good plays when he's on there, especially against the run today. There's one play in coverage that he was behind. It was an easy catch and run for a first down. That's always been his, weakness, is not being a great coverage linebacker. But against the run today, he was shooting gaps. He was getting in the backfield. He was he had his nose around the ball for the majority of the time he was out there. Let's go over to B here. Anything on Kwiatkowski that you would like to mention?
Yeah, I think he might have been listening to Will Ingles talk after he bashed him, because he played very well today. The one play that stood out to me was there was a run to the right, and he just explodes through the gap and forces him outside of the sideline even more, and he's able to make tackle for a loss. That was huge. That's what. Yeah, he's here to play today, and that's what really stood out to me was his ability to not have an inability to make a bad decision. I don't know if I said that right, but he was decisive today, and I think that's going to be very, very important for him going forward.
All right. So anything else you want to add about Kwiatkowski? You talked about him earlier.
We can go to Joel.
We can go to Joel. Let's talk about Iggy, Joel Iyebuniwe. He made his rookie debut today, and again, we'll use the phrase that seems to sum up his game as a mixed bag. He finished second on the team with 5 tackles today. He did get a pass deflection. There's a couple plays in coverage that he's like, oh, wow. He's known to be a good coverage linebacker, and we saw that today. He was able to stick with his guy, have tight coverage, be able to get his hand up in there, make a play on the ball, all good things. But there are other times where he's a little bit out of position, or someone's running right at him and he runs the wrong way. Like, the ball's to your left. Why are you running right? But next, since you brought up Iggy, what do you want to mention?
Yeah, so he was a guy that maybe he obviously was playing linebacker, but he was also a guy in special teams making plays. I think he had 2 special teams tackles, but this is his first game action. Of course, he's not going to be in all the right places at all the right times yet, but he's still learning. And I think we saw some good things from him, because he's going to be able to show his value in being a smaller inside linebacker in coverage. And I think he did a good job of that from the few instances that he was able to beat, drop back, and maybe cover that tight end over the middle. But yeah, I think Iggy, obviously, he's going to have more playing time. He's going to get more used to his role and just get used to this Vic Fangio defense now being healthy. So I liked what I saw from him. Obviously, we need to see more, with the 2 preseasons coming up. Not preseason
games. Yeah. If we have to endure 2 more preseasons,
especially the late ones, I don't know.
Saturday night preseason games. That's everything I live for, guys. Anything else about Iggy?
Growing pains, I think, is the one thing, because you mentioned him running the opposite way when the ball is going to his right and he's running left. Just things of that nature. I'm not taking this game with much value for him right now. He really just needs to get out there and get some reps, and he got some very valuable reps out there. So I think that's really all he needed, and he's going to learn from this. I'm not overly impressed with him in his rookie debut, but again, I'm not going to put a whole ton of value on it just because there's some things that he just needs to get out on the field.
What I'm impressed by is those biceps. I think I want to see him and Thomas Jones next to each other, because Thomas Jones had some arms. I know. No, I think he looks bigger than what he's listed at, like the 6'1", whatever. Yeah, he looks way bigger than his listing, which I mean, he looked like like when he was always drafted, like, oh, he's gonna be a small inside guy. He looked like an inside linebacker tonight in terms of his physical stature. So for me, just another observation, just in case for those. I know not everyone gets to see the preseason game. So unless you're watching the replay on NFL Network or something. So just something to let you know for those who aren't able to watch. But let's bounce outside here. We already talked about Leonard Floyd. I didn't get to do much before the injury. Sam Acho, the one memory I have of him is when they had a play action inside and he just got sucked all the way in, allowed Keenum to bounce out and make an easy throw. And we're like, no. You want to keep that gap integrity, maintain that contain. He didn't do it there, but it's things like, if he's a more athletic linebacker, maybe he has the closing speed to make up for it. But he doesn't, and that's when it hurts you, when you don't maintain the contain, and you get sucked in on a play fake. And then in terms of Kylie Fitz, Isaiah Irving, I didn't see a whole lot, guys, and it's a little scary, especially Floyd already getting hurt, Aaron Lynch seemingly never going to get healthy, and then we just have Sam Acho and these guys. We have Edebali. Yeah, we can talk about him. He had the sack, but I'm still getting more and more by the day slightly worried about the already razor thin depth that we had at outside linebacker, and we knew it coming in, and now it's like this may really be a problem this season. A lot of pressure on the defensive line to keep up the sack numbers, but let's go over to Nick here about the outside guys.
Yeah, I mean, there really wasn't much to say about these outside guys. We did not see anything really from Kylie Fitz, Isaiah Irving, who had, a first good game in that Ravens game. But other than that, it's really been trickling down for them. In terms of, guys that maybe can step up, that's going to be a question just to see who's able to, produce with these last 2 preseason games. But we've seen Adibali. Brandon, we were talking about that last week, who, who's this Adibali guy just coming out of nowhere? And, he had a really good sack today, dipping down underneath the tackle and just wrapping up the quarterback, Paxton Lynch. So impressive to see by him. Maybe, if he consistently does that, maybe he does earn himself a roster spot. But you definitely want to see one of these younger guys step up because, like Will just said, the Bears are razor thin at outside linebacker. An injury to Acho or Leonard Floyd, that's, no good for this defense. They need their outside guys. They're utilized a lot in Vic Fangio's system, but we'll see what happens come the preseason games.
All right, guys, let's go on over to the secondary here. And I want to mention that it was really interesting because you saw Wednesday for the outside corner in place of Mukamara, who's out with an injury. They had a mixture of Marcus Cooper, who did not play tonight, and Doran Grant. That didn't happen tonight. Instead, they had Bryce Callahan playing outside, Cravon LeBlanc in the nickel, and LeBlanc played for the majority, actually the entirety of this game out there, and he played really well, of course. We already talked about that earlier in the show. But I thought that was an interesting look. I know they've done it in the past, but I thought it was an example to see what they have in the younger guys in terms of perhaps on the outside corner. But I think it's also smart for them to kind of like test Callahan on the outside as well to see if they can do this moving forward in a regular season and if it'll be effective. I think we saw today it would be effective because I think that's the value of having a Cravon LeBlanc, that backup nickel corner, because Callahan's a hybrid and even LeBlanc's a hybrid who can play inside or out. So they're very versatile in how they can combat a possible injury to one of the starters in Kyle Fuller or Prince Mukamara. So for me, that lineup in general was pretty interesting. But what about you, Nick, in terms of the secondary?
Yeah, so I mean, Bryce Callahan's a guy that I really like, and regardless if he's at the nickel or we saw him outside at outside cornerback, he's a guy that can just stick to a man and play that guy consistently, and that's what I really like about Callahan. And LeBlanc, a guy that I've been critical about in the past, had a pretty good game today. Able to stick in coverage and obviously had that forced fumble with that peanut punch. So I thought he did better. And obviously he's a guy wasn't being talked about a lot. So, this is a game where, the coaches are going to look at it. Okay, look, Cravon LeBlanc showing that versatility, playing the nickel, can play outside. He's done it in the past. So that's good for him. In terms of the younger guys, though, it's pretty disappointing. I picked Doran Grant to be, my MVP coming into the game. Didn't have a very good game. Michael Joseph didn't have a very good game. And a guy that we want to see have a good game, but didn't, Kevin Toliver, a guy that, looks like when we were watching, he said he just looks the part. He's big physical corner, but, just consistently getting beat, just not able to stay with his man, whipped on a tackle. Like these things, they add up. And he's a guy that, had some character issues. And if he can't play or consistently show good things on the field, he's not going to be on this team much longer.
What about you, B? Anything in the corners that you'd like to mention?
Yeah. Kind of like Nick said, very underwhelmed, I guess, by the younger guys. I thought Michael Joseph had the better day out of the 3, but Kevin Toliver really stood out to me as far as a guy who did not have a good day. Just consistently turned around, either not looking for the ball when it comes to his way or his body's in the wrong position when covering his guy downfield. Kind of frustrating for me. He had one really nice tackle there in run defense. But outside of that, I mean, he just did not have a very good game, in my opinion. Overall, the safeties were pretty quiet. I was disappointed in Eddie Jackson. Early in the game, there was one point where he meets the running back and he just immediately goes for the ball, which is totally fine. But when he covers it up with both hands, I think you kind of have to just make the tackle, because then Nick Kwiatkowski ended up having to come in to finish the job because Eddie Jackson was a little busy trying to get the football out at the time. And I don't know if I should bring up that my man DHC got leveled by a tight end. I mean, literally just kind of pushed him off and put him on the ground. And I was like, oh, come on, man. That was kind of disappointing for me. And special teams wise, because DeAndre Hall's a safety on special teams, you got to recognize when the guy's calling the fair catch. Was losing that one for some reason. I mean, it was a very, very nice hit, but he called for the fair catch, and that's going to be a penalty every time. So just mental lapses. It's nice to see DeAndre Hall. He's always out there with the energy. That's really, really, really nice. And I think that's one thing that he has as far as an edge, if he's going to make the team, is he brings that energy. But you got to be able to play smart at the same time.
You took the words right out of my mouth when you said that the safeties were quiet. I mean, even just looking at the stats, 1 tackle for Eddie Jackson, 1 tackle for Deion Bush, 1 tackle for DeAndre Hall, 2 for DeAndre Houston Carson, and 1 for Adrian Amos. That's it, guys. That's weird. That's really weird to have only like 6 tackles from the safety position in general throughout the entirety of the game. I know guys like Bush, Hall, and Houston Carson were out there after halfway through the second quarter, and they're only able to come up with 4 tackles between the 3 of them. That's a little. That means
the front seven's probably doing their job. I mean, you could take it 2 ways, but you want to.
But were they?
Because they typically, like Adrian Amos is usually one, or Eddie Jackson,
they do more.
That lead the team in tackles.
Yeah.
But my thing was, I saw a lot of missed tackles by the secondary today in general. So there's a lot that was left on the board. So for me, a little bit sloppy. Something that I gave them a lot of praise in the preview show, saying like I haven't had a lot of negative things to say. Well, they gave me some things tonight to say, so I guess they wanted to make a point, and hopefully they don't do that next week. But so for me, very quiet. Nothing to say in terms of the safeties. Nick's shaking his head, so I don't need to hand over the mic. So final thoughts on defense, wrapping up this side of the ball, what you saw tonight, and all of that good stuff. Let's go over to B.
Aside from getting put in poor positions by the offense or bad penalties here and there, which I guess is on the defense, So I guess excluding that last point, just being put in bad positions by the offense, this defense overall in general is still very, very solid. Don't let the 23 points that they gave up be discouraging, because there are ways that can be combated by playing complementary football, something that we've talked about throughout the offseason at various times. So given a little bit more help, and I thought the offense played complementary football early, had a nice long sustained first drive, kept the defense off the field, which was nice, was able to keep them energized. And I think they forced a 3-and-out right away, which was super, super, super cool. Very, very solid defense as a whole. So I think just once the complementary football comes all the way around, I mean, this defense is going to be just fine despite being razor thin at outside linebacker, but they're overall very, very strong.
I'm just glad they only gave up 23 points, because I was a little worried when they gave up 20 in the first half alone. They only gave up 3 in the third quarter, nothing in the fourth. But the drives that they gave up in the second quarter, those 15 points, it's just too easy. They're allowing Denver to just march right down the field. And it was just, again, like I said, too easy. Not a lot of resistance by the Bears defense. Wide open coverage, poor penalties, just not doing a lot, especially when it came to the red zone. It seemed like Denver was able to punch it in with ease. So for me, I was glad to see them in halftime make adjustments, come out there with a different attitude, put the half behind them, and go out there and turn things around. So for me, resiliency might be a big one here. But again, clean up the tackling. Nick?
Yeah, just a quick one right here. I just liked what I saw from the defensive line. I think that was the strongest unit that played tonight. And, that's exactly where the Bears are probably going to get most of their pass rush if, again, these outside linebackers are not able to produce. It's good to see that younger guys on defensive line are making plays.
All right, guys, that's going to take us to our fourth quarter of our show, which is going to begin with our quick hit on special teams. For me, Cody Parkey, he missed that 52-yarder to start things off. It's already his second miss of the preseason. He's been hit or miss in practice as well, which someone who came in having a very consistent year in Miami, he tried to be confident because it's only preseason, doesn't matter, but I'm losing confidence, and I hope he's not, because if he's losing any confidence, that's not going to bode well once we get to the regular season. They did have a drive that got down into Broncos territory, and it was like 3rd and 17, 18, 20-ish, and the Bears did a little screenplay, and it went nowhere, and I was a little upset by the play call for a minute, and I was like, well, wait, maybe they just wanted the Cody Parkey to go out there and get an extra field goal attempt, because those are, they're valuable. So getting just another opportunity for him, he's able to hit that field goal, of course. So, and he hit the extra points, so he was able to turn it around, but still, missing 2 now in the preseason is a little worrisome in my book. Brendan has his hand raised, so I'm handing over the mic.
Well, the 2 that he's missed in preseason are both from 52, I do believe. And kind of a funny story before the game started. And, I kind of looked at these guys and I said, we're up in Denver. The ball's going to try a little further. What's the furthest point that they hit a field goal, and Will goes 52 yards.
Well, they attempted one from 52. Nick, any other special teams things that you want to mention? Do you want to give Cravon a coaching tip?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's right for a punt returner as of right now. That's a position that the Bears, I think, still need to find out who's a true punt returner. Obviously, Tarik Cohen's probably the lead guy there. But other than that, I mean, obviously you want to preserve Cohen for the season. Maybe you don't want to put him out there at punt return every time, but kick return is another position. I think, what was it, Davis today? Was it Nile Davis? Nile Davis. See, yeah, a name that we're kind of looking at like, what, Nile Davis? But yeah, again, there's people fighting for that kick return spot. That's not solidified yet. So you want to see somebody, break away and just kind of take that job. But, 3 preseason games in and no one's really taking it.
I feel like they're just not wanting to show who's going to have those jobs, because you have Niall Davis out there doing it, and then you have Trevathan LeBlanc. That's not going to happen in a regular season. It's going to be Tarik Cohen probably for punts, and then for kickoff, Benny. And Benny didn't play tonight, Benny Cunningham. Yeah. So maybe just giving Niall a look, but it was interesting, to say the least. All right, guys. It is now 12:35 in the morning, so let's go ahead and call our 2-minute warning. And this is kind of where we wrap up our thoughts on the game and put everything into perspective moving forward. And let's go over to B for his 2-minute warning.
Yeah, to start, I want to reflect on my stat of the game, the 64% completion percentage for Trubisky. I think that's just a very, very good sign that the offense is trending in the right direction, because under Dow Loggins, it was hit or miss whether or not he'd hit 60%. And I said his name. Anyway, my bad. He finished the season last year with 59%. And I said at the end of the year and kind of throughout the offseason that he needs to be able to get that up over 60%. And if he's going to continue to have games like this, where the scheme is going to be able to help get guys open, then I don't think he's going to have any issue with that. It's really going to help Trubisky's growth. He just needs to be able to get out there and get some reps. And it was nice to see him out there longer, because combined, I think between college and his first year, he only played 25 games, which is really kind of interesting. I figured, really had to sit back and think about that. Like, why isn't he playing more in the preseason then? Like, I think he needs more reps. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see next week, because I guess that's kind of the dress rehearsal. And I doubt we'll see him much in the last preseason game. I'd like to see him a little bit personally, just because he needs more game time reps. He's only played 25 regular season games. I don't expect him to play much in that one. I would like to see just a little bit, maybe a series or two. Anyway, back to my 2-minute drive. Overall, the offense is trending in the right direction, despite having some miscommunication things here and there, being sloppy. Those are all things that are going to have to get fixed, because Matt Nagy has preached a couple times he doesn't want to see the same mistake twice, and he'll get that fixed up before the regular season comes around. Defense, very strong. Something that Nick touched on. The defensive line is going to have to be able to produce the sack numbers, especially because if Leonard Floyd's injury to his hand is anything severe, I mean, that kind of leaves Sam Acho, and he's not one who's going to provide a lot of sacks. I would cap him at 5 personally. The secondary, though, once Prince Mukamara comes back, overall a very solid group. I really don't have anything to worry about there. And then just to add to the punt return thing, we've seen at one point in the game that Trevathan LeBlanc, Eddie Jackson, and Tarik Cohen were all kind of standing there next to each other, kind of telling LeBlanc after like the 3rd time he took a punt inside the 5, like, you really can't do that, dude. So it's nice to be able to see those guys are being honest and truthful with each other, and being able to coach and correct those mistakes with each other.
Accountability. That's something, no doubt. But no Trubisky in week 4. Look at Shaheen. Look at Trevathan, and look at them using quarterback sneaks. It's week 4 preseason. The other team's gonna play backups anyway. So what are you gonna get better from? And they're doing no. I don't want to take a chance on my franchise quarterback. I'm gonna go over to Nick now, because no.
I've been just watching this chat. It's pretty hilarious. I'm supposed to run. Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you guys for just being in here and just talking. But supposedly I have a race actually with one of our guys in the chat here. But that'll be fun. My 2-minute warning though. I like what I saw from the first team offense. They got better today. Trubisky did end it with that interception. I want to see how he comes back. Against the Chiefs next week, and just build off of everything before that. Because I think he made the right decisions, was able to throw the ball accurately, trust his receivers, give him opportunities to make plays. So I want to see him build off of that, and end his preseason strong and then obviously going into the regular season against Green Bay. And then defensively, it's going to be interesting how the Bears approach this, because if they're getting injuries already, you do not want to have, a Leonard Floyd, a Dan Trevathan, anyone dinged up going into the regular season. So it's going to be interesting how they play that. But, obviously this defense is the, strength of this Bears team right now. But come this, 4th preseason game against the Chiefs, it'll be interesting how they play it. But yeah, that's all I have to say on that. Bears offense is trending in the right direction.
That's a big one. That's a big one because, last week they had zero direction. Actually, they had the opposite direction. They were going backwards. And so for them to go forwards this week, because if you're looking here at the in the offense, I actually want to pull this up because I was actually pretty excited by what I saw here from the drives from the Bears starting offense. Their first one was, let's see, they started off with a touchdown. No, that's backwards. Sorry, I am tired and it is late. So yeah, they had the missed field goal, but their first drive was 51 yards. They had the one that was the safety that went backwards for 5, and then they went out there for another 75 yards. So they put up over 120 yards on 3 drives, which that was all getting into the second quarter. So for them to do that, I mean, that's average of almost 400 yards of offense a game. I know penalties played a factor in that, but they still were able to have those drives. So for me, we went from not getting first downs to we had 1 scoring drive. So in next week's dress rehearsal, we want to see them put multiple scoring drives out there, put some more points up on the board, sustain longer drives, avoid some of the same mistakes that we saw today from the offensive line. Tarik Cohen needs to look a little bit more sharp if they're actually going to have him and use him in a way that is going to be beneficial for his regular season development. But overall, I think we saw some steps in the right direction, and we need to see it again. I think B already hit pretty well much on all the points in the defense that's good to take away. But hopefully next week, I think the big one would be getting Roquan Smith out there in some game action because, as the great Brandon Hazlett said, you don't get better if you're not playing in a game. So I can understand that one in the dress rehearsal game. And I think that's going to do it for my 2-minute warning. I think we've hit on pretty much all the points that we needed to hit on today for you in this Bears-Broncos post-game show. So that's going to do it for this episode, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast. We're going to be back soon as we get closer to that dress rehearsal. But before I go, and I almost forgot to let you know, that we are hosting a live Bears-Packers preview show on Saturday, September 8th. Time is to be determined. We should have that in the next week. It's going to be at Pheasant Run Resort in St. Charles, Illinois. So if you're interested in meeting and joining us for a live Week 1 preview show in person, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook. You can send me an email at will@thebearsbros.com. I'm going to be setting up a Facebook event for this as soon as we get that magazine done. And we really do hope that some of you come out, support the show, and meet us on September 8th. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we want you to take part of that. But yeah. It's extremely late. It's 12:41, 1:41 my normal body clock time. It's Sunday morning. So for those, I know there's a bunch of you in the chat here. A lot of you watching live, it's the 3rd Bears preseason game. It's a Saturday night, but you still chose to hang out with us. And I think that's pretty damn awesome. So I really do appreciate every single one of you who are here watching, who will watch the replay. And of course, everyone listening on our podcast. We're going to talk to you soon. But until then, bear down, Chicago.